Hi, my name is Tori and I am a doctor of physical therapy who specializes in pelvic dysfunction, which means I treat things that can go wrong around the pelvis, which includes bowel dysfunction. Irritable bowel syndrome is something that I run into a lot in clinic, and it's something that I've learned a lot about, not only through my patients and their experiences, but also through a lot of outside of the clinic research that I've put into IBS trying to help my patients. I have gotten multiple requests to do topics surrounding IBS here on this channel, and I am so honored and excited to be finally creating some IBS requested content for you. Because there is so much to discuss around IBS and so many different topics / questions that have been asked, I've decided that I'm going to create an IBS video series instead of just trying to make one video, because I think if I just made one video, it would end up being like an hour or like more than an hour long. So we're gonna do installments, different topics, different IBS videos, and create a series for you. So this will be the first installment of my IBS video series, and I'm gonna do my best to answer the question that I get all the time, not only on this channel, but also in clinic, which is why? Why is IBS happening to me? What causes IBS? There will be timestamps as well as links to the research that I am using for this video, all in the description below. So check that out if it's of interest to you. And without further ado, let's dive in. So I think before we talk about specifically what causes IBS, it's important to define IBS. So let's answer that question. What is IBS? What is irritable bowel syndrome? IBS is diagnosed via the process of elimination. There is no medical test that exists that will come out positive or negative for IBS. Instead, there's something called the Rome criteria that is used to diagnose IBS when other diseases that have IBS-like symptoms have been ruled out. So first, your physician has to rule out more sinister diagnoses like cancer, ovarian cancer, colon cancer, thyroid cancer can all present with IBS-like symptoms. Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis also have to be ruled out. Those are inflammatory bowel diseases. Bowel obstruction, diverticulitis or diverticulosis, gallstones, food allergies, bacterial infections, SIBO, parasites, and endometriosis are some things that need to be ruled out before someone can officially be diagnosed with IBS. So then, once all of those diagnoses are officially ruled out, then someone has to fit the Rome criteria in order to officially be diagnosed with IBS. I am going to read you the most up-to-date Rome criteria for diagnosing IBS, just so you are aware of what it is. Recurrent abdominal pain on average at least 1 day per week in the last 3 months, associated with 2 or more of the following criteria: related to defecation, associated with a change in the frequency of stool, associated with a change in the form or appearance of stool. So it's clear that this Rome criteria leaves a lot of room for either the constipation dominant, diarrhea dominant, or the constipation diarrhea mixed presentations that are usually seen with IBS. And that's all we've got for diagnostics, which is, I think, a reflection of how little we understand IBS in the medical community. So then let's move on to the big question: what causes irritable bowel syndrome? That is loud background noise. Here's the crazy thing. Even though IBS symptoms all manifest in the gut, which might make you feel like the cause of IBS would be something more gut related, like food, the most up-to-date research actually points to IBS being caused by brain-gut axis dysfunction. So let's zoom out for a minute and talk about what the brain-gut axis even is. Your brain and your spinal cord are considered your central nervous system. Your brain does a lot of things, but what I want to highlight here is that your brain is in charge of interpreting information. Your brain is constantly interpreting information from your external environment via your senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, and your skin. But your brain is also constantly interpreting information from your internal environment, which includes your organs. The spinal cord is what connects this information to your brain. Any input that you receive, whether that is external input like you just watched and listened to a YouTube video, or an internal input like input from your intestines, any input that you receive must first go through the spinal cord before it gets to the brain. That's the central nervous system in a nutshell. Now on to the gut. The fascinating thing about the gut is that it's actually considered to be a second brain. In fact, the gut is also referred to as the enteric nervous system. I don't have time in this video to deep dive into just how fascinating the gut as a second brain actually is. If you want to see that video, let me know in the comments below. But I will read you an excerpt from a 2011 study that I think does a really good job of just giving you a window into what is going on. Recent neurobiological insights into this gut-brain crosstalk have revealed a complex bidirectional communication system that not only ensures the proper maintenance of gastrointestinal homeostasis and digestion, but is likely to have multiple effects on affect, motivation, and higher cognitive functions, including intuitive decision-making. So cool, and such a cool little insight into language, like a gut feeling that might actually be coming from your enteric nervous system, that might actually be your gut. It's crazy. But my intention in sharing that with you is for you to see that there is clearly a lot of information that is shared between the gut and the brain and the brain and the gut. So this bidirectional communication, this gut to spinal cord to brain, and then brain to spinal cord to gut, this is the brain-gut axis that we were talking about. So then, back to what we were saying earlier, it does seem that irritable bowel syndrome is caused from varying forms of brain-gut axis dysfunction. As this 2016 literature review puts it, the manifestation of IBS symptomatology may occur anywhere along the brain-gut axis continuum and has proven resistant thus far to curative medical treatment. Although great gains have been made by research endeavors in brain-gut axis dysfunction in patients with IBS, the development of symptomatology has remained elusive to our understanding. So in other words, IBS is a physical problem. You are not making it up. It is not all in your head. But unfortunately, we still don't quite understand why certain people develop IBS and why others don't. That being said, I want you to know that you are not alone in this experience. In fact, the research that we do have points to a pretty high percentage, 9 to 13%, so we could probably say 1 in 10 people in developed nations are suffering with IBS, so know that you are not alone in this experience at all. But here is what we do know. Talking about that brain-gut axis, there is something called the gastrocolic reflex, and it seems that in humans who have IBS, something is dysfunctional with this gastrocolic reflex. So a quick review of your GI system. If we follow food from the mouth out until it's a bowel movement, you chew it in your mouth, you eat it and swallow it. It goes down your esophagus, into your stomach, through the small intestines, then through the large intestines, eventually into your rectum, and then through your anus out into the world as a bowel movement. Your intestines move. They rhythmically contract and relax to propel food and eventually waste through them so that that waste ends up in your rectum and then eventually in the toilet. This rhythmic contraction of the intestines is known as peristalsis, and it literally looks like a snake eating a mouse. That rhythmic contraction throughout the snake is essentially what the intestines look like when they are undergoing peristalsis. Peristalsis is not under your control. It's not something that you can voluntarily be like, all right, intestines, let's rhythmically contract and relax, much like you don't have any control over your heart. You're not sitting here being like, all right, heartbeat, beat, beat, right? These things are happening even though you don't have any voluntary control over them. Instead, there is a reflex called the gastrocolic reflex that stimulates peristalsis for you. The gastrocolic reflex is stimulated by eating food. This is why you might remember maybe before you had IBS, or you might see this in your friends and your family, humans eat food and then they have to have a bowel movement. You eat something, the act of eating stimulates that rhythmic contraction dysfunction stimulates peristalsis, and the intestines literally make room for the new food that you're eating, and you end up pooping. If there are any parents watching this, this is why infants often need a diaper change after breast or formula feeding. So what happens if the gastrocolic reflex is dysfunctional? Let's break that down. If the gastrocolic reflex is overly sensitive, well, that would mean really intense rhythmic contraction of those intestines, which could cause abdominal pain and diarrhea. Sounds an awful lot like diarrhea-dominant IBS. On the other hand, if the gastrocolic reflex is really underly sensitive, well then that would mean really slow intestinal contractions, and that would cause abdominal bloating, which can be very painful, as well as constipation, which sounds a lot like constipation-dominant IBS. Finally, when considering the gastrocolic reflex, well, that would mean that symptoms could potentially be the most intense right after you eat, like 10 to 15 minutes after a meal, which sounds an awful lot like IBS attacks, right? So in the clinic, if I'm working with someone who has IBS, we use this idea of a dysfunctional gastrocolic reflex as the guideline for our symptom management. And that is exactly what I plan to outline in my next installment of the IBS video series, Diet and Trigger Foods. How do I use diet to potentially better manage my IBS symptoms? Because as we talked about in this video, the true dysfunction lies somewhere in that brain-gut axis. There's something dysfunctional there, and curative treatment isn't an option currently. However, with the new research that we have, there are better options for symptom management, and that is my intention in the clinic, and that is my intention with my next video for you guys about IBS. Whew, thank you so much for watching. Again, I can't tell you how honored and excited I am to not only be doing request videos, that means so much to me, but also to be building a platform here on YouTube. So thank you so much. As I said, I do plan on talking about trigger foods and diet for symptom management in my next video. I was also thinking about covering Linzess. I get a lot of questions about IBS and Linzess. I thought that that would be a good video topic. I also think a good separate video would be talking about stress management and mood and how that can affect IBS symptoms as well. And then there are some really interesting treatments in the form of hypnosis that I've been reading about. I thought that might be an interesting video topic. But if you are someone watching with IBS, or if you have a loved one with IBS and you have a topic that you want me to consider within this IBS video series, please just tell me. Leave it in the comment section below and I will read that and consider it very much. Please, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it, and feel free to comment your experiences, questions that you have, content suggestions, anything. I really do try to read and respond to all of my comments. Subscribe to my channel for more content surrounding pelvic health. Check me out on Instagram, and thank you so much again for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!